People go missing every single day, but some cases, they leave behind questions that don't make sense. Like a woman who vanished and turned up in photos that no one was ever supposed to see. Or like an 8-year-old girl who goes missing in the wilderness with no trace and no one who saw her. Or even like a seasoned huntsman who goes 15 miles in the other direction. These are their stories. She was locked in a cage, photographed, and auctioned for sale like an animal. This is the story of Cassidy Rainwater. She was just 33 years old, living in Missouri. And like a lot of people during the pandemic, she was struggling to get her life back on track. She had been couch surfing and trying to get stable again, bouncing from home to home, desperately looking for a stable income. During her search, she had people trying to help her like family and friends. But by July 2021, Cassidy had just vanished. No one had seen or heard from her in weeks. At first, nobody was really suspectful because she would often go to different places quite frequently and was pretty bad at getting back in touch with people. Because of this, when they filed a missing persons report, the police weren't actually too concerned at all. Police said that she was an adult who moved around a lot. Her phone just probably got disconnected and she just wasn't able to pay for it. But her family insisted this wasn't like Cassidy to just up and leave and not talk to anybody for weeks on end. She wouldn't just vanish and disappear without letting anyone know where she was going. Then, nearly 2 months later, police receive a chilling tip. It comes in the form of an anonymous photo, and it shows Cassidy in a metal cage in the middle of the forest, partially naked. Her arms were at her side and her face frozen in fear. Police send this photo to the analysis team to get a better geolocation of where this photo was taken. When that analysis comes back, they actually show an area pretty close to where Cassie would often visit. As the photo expands, they come across a house that's in that general area. When they look up the owners of this house, there pops up 2 individuals, one of which was actually a friend of Cassidy's, somebody who was actively involved in trying to help Cassidy get back on her feet. They quickly obtain a search warrant to look through the area. When they show up at the home, they don't see anything that's immediately incriminating, but what they do see is cameras in trees and weird angles, traps in their backyards, hunting gear, and all kind of things that are super suspicious, but nothing that could get them thrown in jail. It wasn't until one of the investigators decided to open up the fridge for whatever reason. And what they find inside is butcher meat, but it doesn't look like anything out of the butcher shop. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even prepped like the butcher shop. Concerned, they actually grab one of these meats and send it over to get DNA analysis. During this time, they're interviewing one of the men, Tim Norton, grueling him, until finally, moments before when the DNA analysis comes back, he admits to capturing and luring Cassidy Rainwater to the home. Then DNA analysis would come back and show that that mystery meat was actually Cassidy Rainwater. During this time, they're investigating further into the house where they come across a computer that was being used. On this computer, they find a website associated with the dark web, and they're looking through it, and then that's where they find it. The photos of Cassidy Rainwater, multiple of them. She's advertised like an animal. There's descriptions of her height, her ethnicities, and other things that cannibals would look for. There was even messages of very interested buyers into Cassidy. Cassidy wasn't just murdered, she was dehumanized, reduced to a product, packaged, and nearly sold like meat at the grocery store, all while staying with someone who she thought was trying to help her. It's easy to think that stories like this are just for movies, but they're real, and this one just happened a few years ago. And if that story doesn't keep you up at night, the next one will. Because next, we're going into the woods where a little girl vanished near Devil's Den. 5 members of the Van Alst family take a trip to Devil's Den, one that they would never take again. What happened in those woods is still unexplained, but the story of Katherine Van Alst is one of the most haunting disappearances ever recorded. It was 1946 when the Van Alst family, the mom, dad, 2 boys, and Katherine, visited Devil's Den National State Park in Arkansas. This park is massive with rugged terrain, cliffs, and all typical things of a forest. So that day, the family decides to go visit the creek in the state park. They show up there and everything's pretty calm. Katherine and her brothers are playing with some of the other kids of the family while her parents are relaxing and the dad's sitting in the shade. He's keeping one eye on the boys and the other on Katherine. Well, when looking at the boys for a few minutes, he goes to check to see where Katherine was just at, and when he looks, she's just gone. At first, he's a little worried, not too concerned, and he's yelling out Katherine's name. But after a few minutes, he starts to panic. He's screaming and yelling out for Katherine. At this point, all the other people visiting the park start joining in to search for Katherine, yelling and searching the area, but nobody can find her. After about an hour, her dad decides to call her in missing and get the local authorities involved. Rangers, police officers, volunteers, even bloodhounds join the search for 2 full days. Dozens of trained professionals scoured the area in every direction. But Devil's Den isn't just some gentle place. Steep cliffs, uneven terrain, dense underbush, and wildlife make it almost impossible for an experienced adult to navigate the area, let alone an 8-year-old little girl who's barefoot just in her swimsuit. You would think after a couple days they would find something: broken branches, torn clothing, something that could indicate what direction that Katherine headed towards, but yet there was nothing. And then on day 6, everything changed. A search team nearly 7 miles away from where Katherine had originally disappeared was calling out her name, when suddenly a little girl steps out of a limestone cave and said, "Here I am." That's it. Completely calm, completely collected. No worries shown on her face at all. As if she didn't survive nearly a week alone in the woods. They quickly rushed her to the hospital, where doctors were amazed. She had minor bruises and scratches, but nothing major. But the crazy part was, she had no signs of dehydration or malnourishment. And here's where things get even weirder. You see, I told you she was 7 miles away from where she had originally disappeared, but that's going in a straight line from point A to B. And you see, when you're traveling in the woods, you rarely ever get to go in a straight line in a destination. You're going up and down rough terrain, going around things, like you're kind of moving everywhere. So experts actually estimated that she traveled well over 30 miles in those 6 days. So for an 8-year-old little girl with no wildlife experience, in just a swimsuit, to survive 6 days nearly unscathed, not even close to dehydrated or malnourishment, is nothing short of a miracle. When they asked her what happened and where she went, she couldn't give them answers. All she could say was, "I just remember waking up on warm grass, and then the next thing I remember is you guys calling out my name at the cave. I have no memory of how I got there or how I even left." Some people suspect that the trauma that she experienced actually caused her to block out that memory. Others theorize that due to the amount that she traveled in that short span, something may have been chasing her. But to this day, no one can explain how an 8-year-old little girl survived one of the most dangerous national parks all on her own. But when someone disappears, you're left with more questions than answers, much like this next story. He was an experienced outdoorsman who was well prepared with backup gear and caches nearby, and yet somehow got lost. This is one of the most strangest missing 411 cases ever recorded. This is a story of Aaron Hedges. If you've never heard of the missing 411 cases, it's a term used in the US to describe some of the most bizarre missing people cases ever in the national parks. These aren't just your average missing hiker stories. Many involved experienced outdoorsmen with strange weather patterns, missing time, or victims being found in places already searched. Aaron's case fits that pattern extremely well. In 2014, Aaron's an experienced elk hunter who often would go into the Montana mountains to go hunt. He did this trip so many times he no longer needed a map because he said he knew this place like the back of his hand and proved it on multiple successful hunting trips. So one day he decides to take him and 2 of his buddies to go on one of these hunting trips out in the crazy mountains in Montana. In preparation for this, he set up extra caches around where he was gonna go, set up with things he would need to survive, like sleeping bags, extra food, tools, clothes. It was actually pretty smart. He was very well prepared for this trip. So him and his 2 buddies actually take a couple horses and a packing mule to the destination that they're going at. And the first couple days are actually pretty fun. They're having a really good time. But on day 3, Aaron's shoes get soaked. And if you know anything about survival, having extremely wet clothes is an easy ticket to death. So Aaron, not freaked out, kind of preparing for moments like this, was like, "Hey, don't worry about it, guys. I'm just gonna go to one of the caches north, get some extra boots. I'll be right back in about a couple hours or so." His friends are okay. They don't really worry about it because Aaron's their guide, so whatever he says goes. But after a few hours, they don't hear from Aaron at all, and they start to get worried, so they decide to call Aaron up on the walkie-talkie. But the thing about these walkie-talkies that was pretty cool is when the other person answered, it actually showed their GPS location. So when they call Aaron on the walkie-talkie and he answers, it shows that Aaron's actually east, the complete opposite direction that he was supposed to be at. So at this point, his friends are like, Aaron, where are you at? What are you doing? You aren't even in the same area that you said you were going to go at. Aaron's like, my bad, guys. I got turned around somehow. Don't worry about it. I know where I'm at now. I'll be there soon. Well, soon turned into hours with no contact. The snow's starting to fall and his friends are getting really worried. So they decide to take the horses and go look for Aaron at his last known location. But they can't find him. They keep calling him on the walkie-talkie. They get no response. There's no tracks that they can easily see to figure out where Aaron went. And they don't know the mountains well enough to go and explore on their own. So they decide to head back to camp and call the local authorities. Over the next several days, massive search teams would scour the entire Montana mountains in the area that Aaron was last known to be at. It takes months and there's no signs of Aaron until finally, 11 miles east of the original camp, they find Aaron's boots left behind, along with his backpack and some other clothing, which wouldn't make sense as to why Aaron would leave behind so many clothes when it was clearly snowing by the time he was there. Aside from this, they wouldn't find any more clues for Aaron until 2 years later. In August of 2016, a rancher would report something weird off in the distance in his property, 15 miles away from the original campsite. Near a locked shade on the peak of a mountain that overlooked everything was the remains of a human body, Aaron Hedges. His body was partially decayed and he was laying next to a shed. It looked like he was trying to get into the shed for shelter, but gave up and wasn't able to make it in. But the strangest part was right next to him was a water bottle completely filled with water, like nobody ever drank from it. So how does a survival savvy hunter with emergency gear and extensive wilderness experience walk 15 miles in the wrong direction, leaving behind important articles of clothing to keep him warm? And how did he end up east when his cache was north, where he put it? And in his own words, he knew this place like the back of his hands. And that shelter he was at actually overlooked everything. So even if he was truly lost, you could easily see the campsite that he was just at. Some believe Aaron may have went insane in the mountains, or that something possessed him to do that, but no one truly knows. Aaron's story is chilling, not because of how he died, but because of all the questions that are left unanswered. If you like these videos and want more stories like this, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below if there's any other type of missing persons cases that you want me to cover next.